we'll be moving on to our first panel, where we will hear from remarkable Black female founders as they dive into their entrepreneurial journeys, discuss their hardships, and open the conversation for solutions and change. Moderating this panel discussion is Dr. Tammira Lucas, an entrepreneur at heart. Tammira is the CEO of the Cube Network and co-founder of Moms as Entrepreneurs, an organization focusing on decreasing chronic poverty in families. She is also a proud Coppin State University professor and venture growth advisor for TEDCO's Urban Business Innovation Initiative, where she works with entrepreneurs in the Baltimore City region. Please join me in welcoming one of the baddest women in the Maryland region, Dr. Tammira Lucas, moderator for today's Founders Panel.
Good morning, everyone. It is so exciting to see so many great people in my house, my home. Coppin, I always say, West Baltimore birthed me and Coppin raised me. So I am super excited to be here to represent many different hats that I wear. As Tammy said, and to really moderate an amazing panel with some of the Black women that I've been able to advise, some that I've been able to partner with. But I want to say this before we get started. This conversation will be uncomfortable. And I think that if it's anybody to lead an uncomfortable conversation, if you know me, I'm the right woman for the job. But I want you guys to listen to what these founders have to say. I do also want to thank Tammy, my partner in Impact, because when Tammy and I sat down and we talked about many of the issues that Black women are experiencing, those were not just what the founders on this panel, but myself as a founder also have experienced. So I'm super excited to have this conversation. I do want to really highlight the fact that Tammy mentioned that I am a woman of many hats, right? And I do those things very well. And I think Black women are constantly told that they can't do certain things or you have to choose one thing, and that's just not, I'm not a believer of that, okay? So I want to get started with our panelists introducing yourselves. I can't do their bios no justice if I sit here and read it, so we're just going to go across, get you guys an opportunity to introduce yourself, and then I'll go into the actual panel. So we'll start with you, Tina.
Okay. Hi, good morning, everyone. Oh. Everybody says they can hear me before they see me, but okay, there we go. I'm Tina Williams-Koroma. I've been in the cybersecurity field for over 21 years. Went to University of Maryland, Baltimore County undergrad. Computer science was my major. I'm a serial entrepreneur, run a cyber services company for the past 9.5, 10 years, and I pulled CyDeploy as a product company out as a separate venture. So very happy to be with you all here today.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Liz Clayborne. I'm an emergency medicine physician by training. Ooh. Yes. EM in the house. I see a fellow Mocha Medicine. Faculty with University of Maryland, and I am the CEO and co-founder of NasaClip, which is bringing the first and only adjustable hands-free device for treating nosebleeds that empowers anyone, anywhere to stop nosebleeds fast. I will be giving you all a demo later because I always do that. I'm thrilled to be representing, the strength and beauty of Black female founders up here. And oftentimes I like to bring up that the reason that I think we are actually one of the best investments that you can make in entrepreneurship is that we breathe resilience and innovation. Right, that's the fabric of our culture. So I'm super excited to be here. My offices are in Baltimore, and I see Josh is here with Harbor Designs, where we're located. We do manufacture and assemble here, and launched our product officially in July of this year.
Good morning, everybody. Ashley Williams, the founder and CEO of Clymb. My background is in education, school leadership. I attended University of Maryland, Baltimore County for undergrad, and I found myself falling into education post-graduation right here in Baltimore City, and I was focused on the mental and emotional health of students, and I saw that there was space to improve it, and I resigned from my position to start Clymb. This was several years ago. My passion is emotional wellness, meditation, mindfulness. If you spent 30 seconds with me, you probably know that already. So Clymb is just an extension of my heart and my passion, and I'm really excited to be here with you today.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shawna Stepp-Jones. I'm a hardware engineer from West Baltimore, and I am the proud founder of Divaneering Lab, where we're revolutionizing the $10.1 billion wig and weave industry with the first ever no-heat dryer designed exclusively for wigs and weaves. Thank you. I am a proud alumni of Morgan State University. Go Bears! and the Johns Hopkins and the Johns Hopkins University. In the community, I am creating a community of women and girls that are in the mainstream of science, technology, engineering, innovation, and math. And I am truly about increasing the amount of women and girls participating in STEM and innovation.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's a blessing and an honor to be here this morning. My name is Berger. I worked in network news for over a decade as a senior booking producer, a national news feature host. I had a podcast and a news feature that aired on 1,300 stations nationwide. But I think the whole vein of my story is that my entire time in network news, I was the only Black woman in the newsroom. And in that process, I was able to increase diversity by 85%, triple our network booking numbers on top of booking over 140,000 guests in my entire career. And I wear the pride of my West Baltimore girls up here. I'm from Edmondson Village, born and raised, went to Dunbar Senior High School, and attended University of Maryland Eastern Shore, HBCUs in the building. Okay. But I'd just like to say it's an honor to talk about EBO, my technology that automates the subject matter expert booking process, and it gets people on air immediately. But the ultimate social impact goal of EBO is to ensure that diverse voices are seen and heard in the media on a consistent basis when a crystal is no longer in the room.
These ladies prove my point this morning of my social media post of Black women are the most disrespected species on this planet. Yet, the world couldn't operate without us. If we took everything away a Black woman helped create, innovate, or advocate for, the world wouldn't exist as it does today. So with that being said, in 2020, only 93 Black women had ever raised over $1 million in venture capital, according to a report by Project Diane. And in 2021, Crunchbase found that Black female startup founders received merely 0.34% of the total venture capital spent in the United States in the first half of the year. Now, I told you all I've worked with some of these founders personally, so I know some of their personal journeys. And Shawna, I want to start with you. I knew she was going to do that. You have a remarkable story on how you actually raised capital for your company. And I really want you to briefly share your story and highlighting why, not this wasn't by choice, why you had to go that route of raising the capital.
Sure. So, as I mentioned before, I am an inventor of dryer technology, Spundle, and I just want to give you some context. I'm going to be short, but I'm also a former patent examiner. So when you're working around innovation and inventions, you get inspired. And so having a problem with drying my own wigs and weaves, I decided that I was going to provide a solution. However, when you're at the patent office, you cannot file for a patent and be a patent examiner. You actually have to leave and you have to be gone for 1 year before you can even protect your idea. So that's the first hurdle, invisible hurdle. And so once I came across this innovative idea for drying wigs and weaves, of course I needed some capital. So the first place I came was to TEDCO, actually way back in 2016 when they first started to build a fund. And at that time, I spent some time pitching my invention to investors within the network, and none of them fancy investors was ready to take a chance on me, although I feel like I had the credibility to build a multi-billion-dollar company and really innovate in an untapped and underserved market. So trying to get this capital, I spent some time pitching and was unsuccessful. So I had to run a play from the Book of Hood Economics where where you gotta use what you have, you know, and turn your struggles into strengths. And so although it was unconventional, although it was extremely risky, it was incredibly creative. And so what I decided to do was to become a surrogate and give birth to twin boys to get my first capital, to get my idea out of my head and in front of investors, because just with the passion alone and the credibility alone, it wasn't enough. So once I was able to get the concept built, from there, I was able to attract more investors, and eventually I raised $250,000 to do the research and development for Spindle.
Now, I'm gonna ask, how many men in this room had to become a surrogate? Oh, okay, well, okay. So, I mean, what an incredible story. Do we understand the statistics of Black women giving birth and the mortality rate? And she risked it all for her passion, for her vision, and for her goals. Okay, because, you know, every time you tell that story, I know what it was like to give birth. I have a 13-year-old. So according to the International Cybersecurity Membership Organization, women make up only 24% of the cybersecurity workforce, which much lower percentages in some parts of the world. Minorities are grossly underrepresented in the industry. And so according to the Aspen Digital Tech Policy Report, only 9% of cybersecurity experts are Black. This is for a number of reasons: access to education, lack of mentorship, and systematic racism. So Tina, this one's for you. Not only are you a Black woman in the cybersecurity industry, but you're a founder in the industry. And so what was your respective journey in raising capital? And please highlight your most shocking moment in that process.
Yes. So as I mentioned, I've been in the cyber field for about 21 years, have a services company that's been in full-time operation, T-Secure, for almost 10 years. And I had started the product within the services company initially. The problem is with the product company is you need a lot of upfront capital to actually develop the product, test it out, et cetera. And that started impacting our services rates. Like the time had to go somewhere, it had to get allocated somewhere. So our financial controllers, like, you need to pull CyDeploy, the name of my tech venture, out from the services business. So the initial funding came through a Maryland program, Maryland Industrial Partners Program, MIPS, which I think is a really great program. It partners with any public university here in the state. And the program will put forward up to 90% depending upon the size of the company, and then the company puts in 10%. And the max is $100,000 in a year. So $90,000 was put forward by the MIPS program, $10,000 by CyDeploy. We worked with my alma mater, UMBC, and that was how I developed the prototype. Now, getting the prototype out was one thing. Actually building my own team and creating the commercial version of the product that could actually go to market required additional capital. And so we've raised 1.1 million total for our pre-seed. So that's where we are from a company. Thanks. Yeah. And it has definitely been a journey. Like, that raise was from about November 2021, when some of the first capital came in, to February 2023. So when you think about the time period over which we had to raise money, you don't typically like to have rounds. And we did ours in 2 tranches, a pre-seed A and B. You typically don't want to have to raise money over that period. Ideally, you would be opening a round and able to close it within no more than a few months, right? Like, open, close, use the money, keep going. The problem with having to raise it over that period of time is that I'm both having to raise, I'm having to keep the vision of the company alive, I'm having to do like engineering. I ended up bringing in a technical co-founder because I couldn't keep my eye on the engineering ball. I'm technical, computer science background, et cetera, but I can't keep a close enough eye on the ball for the product, and also like the vision of the company and bringing in good people and fundraising. Like, that's just a lot of different hats. So one of the most shocking that happened, actually had an angel investor. We put together the contract and everything for the funding. Everything was signed. The money was going to come in 2 tranches. The first one came, and then I was like, okay, great. Like, July, I think this was July of 2021 or 2022. I was like, okay, the second tranche is coming in. I had already made plans for this money. We got a contract, like, okay, I'm going to make this higher. We're going to, do this new feature. The time comes, and like, hey, ooh, where's the money? And he's like, yeah, so I changed my mind. I mean, that was shocking to me. I was like, huh? Like, I asked my attorneys, I was like, how does this work? And my attorneys were like, you could pursue like a violation, a breach of contract, et cetera, but like, the time and money for that is like, what's the point? So, I was like, wow, okay, so that's how we work, So it does, like, you have not raised it until that money is in the bank and you see it in your account, so I just give that as like a most shocking, like, tentatively make plans for money and have a plan B and a C and a D just in case. So, yeah.
Taking a page out of Shawna's book, Hood Economics, I like that. I'm going to use that several times. Hood Economics. It's not surprising to me. I think growing up in West Baltimore in the conditions that I think some of us we did grow up in, those type of things aren't surprising, that we always have to have a plan A to Z. Because promises are constantly broken when it comes to us and how we have to operate in business. Dr. Clayborne, let's just give her another round of applause. And I say that because I am such a proponent of Black women doctors in the medical field. I don't think that we are birthing enough of them, and I think it's important for us to really expose our children to opportunities in the medical field because of the rates that Black women, the things that we experience as Black women in the medical system. I was just having this conversation last night that we are never heard, right? Like, we're never heard if giving birth or just dealing with health issues, period. So I commend you on your service to us. Thank you. As of September 2023, you were able to raise $2.5 million in funding. Yes, give her a round of applause, because to Black female founders, That's $100 million in our terms. This number seems extremely large for us because we typically don't raise that much money. But when we look at other demographics, we see that they are able to raise more money and faster. When you reflect on the process of raising your $2.5 million, what resources were the most helpful for you?
First of all, thank you so much. And I do think it's extraordinarily important that we have more representation in the medical field. And I actually love the idea of having more people in medicine and on media. When COVID hit, we'll take you a little backtrack, I was 6 months pregnant, okay, working at the old PG County Hospital, the new Capital Region Medical Center. But if you guys know PG County Hospital, one of the hardest hit hospitals in the state of Maryland. I worked through the first wave back when we had no PPE. Testing took 10 days with 2 other pregnant providers and went on the news frequently because I understood how important it was for my predominantly Black population to hear the voice of a Black woman telling them what they should do, how they should respond, and how to protect themselves and their families. So
yes.
I do think that it is so important to have that representation. One of the key things I did after delivering my baby girl in May of 2020 is I participated in the TEDCO Builder Fund, and that was one of my first sources of capital, yes. As you can see, they've been a lifeline to several of us. So when you first have an idea, most of us just have something that's in our head. And that's how it was for me when I was in training at GW. I was like, look, we see 500,000 ER visits a year for nosebleeds. And I was like, what? Why are you in this ER for nosebleeds? Mm-hmm. And, it seems like a simple problem, but, it's very common in kids 2 to 10, older adults 55 to 80. And a lot of times that population of people, they don't treat their nosebleeds correctly. They don't hold constant pressure. They put their head back instead of forward. And then I understand, it's blood, so they freak out and they'll come to the ER. But for me as an ER physician, I'm like, you didn't just get shot. You're not having a heart attack, so you gotta wait. And we didn't have anything to give them. I was taping together tongue depressors. And so I was like, why is there not something to help empower people treat nosebleeds at home, or at least make my job easier? And that is where I came up with the idea for NasaClip. And I will show it to you real quick and then walk you through how I got this initial capital. So Tina, hold this for me real quick. So if you're having a nosebleed, you can now use this device. It can be medicated if desired with agents like oxymetazoline. You clear your nose of clot, insert the nasal sponges, rotate it into place, and pinch it shut. So now I'm hands-free, my mouth is clear, my eyes are clear, I could go about my day. I leave this in place for about 10 to 20 minutes, and then I simply release the clip, check for bleeding, and it can even be rinsed and reinserted 2 to 3 times. Seems so simple, right? Everyone's like, that should exist already. It doesn't, I have the patents to prove it. So now, you can go on NasaClip.com and purchase this for your school, your sporting outfit, your hospital, your clinic, your airline. We are in the process of talking to Disney, who wants to roll it out to all their cruise lines and parks. So we are come a long way, right? Thank you. From the idea I had in my head. But when I first had that idea, you have to immediately understand you need capital or you're dead on the vine. You have to get patents, you have to start prototyping. And a lot of times investors expect you to have what's called a friends and family round. The problem for our demographic is our friends and family are not made up of the friends and family of maybe a trust fund baby's, circle. And so both institutional investors don't really understand why you're struggling in the early stages of fundraising, and you really heavily rely on angel groups and organizations like TEDCO who understand the brilliance that we have, the opportunity that exists if we're given that initial start. So I raised 2 actual pre-seed runs also on convertible notes after participating in the Builder Fund to raise my first 1.1 million. And I'm proud to say over 80% of my cap table is Black. I was heavily supported by Black angels. So I talked to physician colleagues, other members who kind of were in the STEM community, and just people who believed in me and took early checks that were like $5,000. From there, that's what propelled me to be in the position I'm in today, where I'm currently raising a $4 million seed raise. Thank you. Big money now. I just keep moving forward. And I closed on about 1.5 of that in October of this year, but I still have another 2.5 to raise. So to Tina's point, Fundraising is a full-time job, and while doing that, I'm also still running the company, launching the product, doing a lot of speaking engagements. I also have an SBIR NSF Phase 1 award that I just concluded, and now I'm applying for Phase 2 money. So you are constantly pulled in a bunch of different directions, and it's supposed to do every job to the absolute perfection, or you may not make it. And so it is a lot of pressure, but as I said before, I operate well under pressure. I'm an emergency medicine physician. I know what I'm doing, and I'm gonna make this a unicorn company. So I think my reflection is that I never thought that I would not get the money. I just knew that it was going to require a lot of work and that I was going to have to be creative in the sources that I sought out funding. And I think for a lot of women of color, we have to start more in the angel network. We have to look for non-dilutive funding and grants, and then we have to build up the momentum so that we can command the respect of the institutional investors who come a little bit late to the game, but will be able to eventually elevate you to the next phase.
And she's a mom.
Yes.
She's doing all of this while being a mother as well, which is two full-time jobs in itself. And for my VCs in the room, I want you to answer the question, why? Why do she have to go through all of this to get, or take this long to get to the point where she is with an amazing product, as well as the background education and expertise? So that's a question that I would like for you guys to answer. Right? Because our white male counterparts don't have to go through that. And we've seen it, and that's the reality of it, right?
Can I just add one statistic, because I think this just gives great color. I always share with people, on average, a white male founder needs to speak to about 7 contacts to get a yes or an investment, a turn on money. Black female founders, on average, have to speak to 70 contacts. 10 times that amount. That is why it's taking us a year to raise as much money as somebody else can raise in 2 to 3 months. And that is the statistic that must change.
Absolutely. And I also want to say to our Black community in the room, one of the things that Dr. Clayborne mentioned was that most of the investors on her cap table are Black people. And we have to get used to pooling our resources together, because do we understand Black economics, right? The power of our dollar. We saw this happen during the pandemic when we pulled our money back from certain places and spaces and how it impacted them, right? And that's where all of the DEI initiatives stem from. Now we need to focus on DEI because we need our Black dollar, right? And so just understand the power of the Black dollar and putting it together. There's no way that a young girl from West Baltimore, when I say West Baltimore, I mean I could walk to my old house from Coppin State University, can go to my neighbors, knock on everyone's door and raise $1 million. That's not happening. I'm not even raising $100, to be honest with you. So we have to understand the power of our dollars and how to really talk about finances early on, how to really understand how to invest our money to grow and to build generational wealth, because that's why we're here today. Ashley, you have had a lot of wins lately. Give Ashley a round of applause. She'll talk about those wins. With Clymb, and I love to see it. I don't know if you know, but I be rooting for you on LinkedIn, sister. So, however, I'm sure that those wins doesn't equate to the amount of work it has taken for you to get to this point. So I want you to talk about what has been your biggest struggle navigating a system that was never designed for Black women to win.
Good question. So anytime I talk about struggle as it relates to my own experience, the purpose of the story is not the struggle, but the way that it was overcome. Mm-hmm. So my story is very similar in that I had an idea and I left my job to tinker with that idea. And I found very quickly that it was difficult to raise capital. And a part of that was my own ignorance. I came from the education space. I didn't know much about the startup space. So I took it upon myself to refine myself. Baltimore City is really amazing. There are so many resources in this city to empower startup founders. Like, all across the city. So please take advantage of them. I took full advantage of all of the resources that were here, and I was still getting no's. I remember I went to a conference in California. It was a social impact space, so you would think that my company was like in the perfect place. And there was an investor there who was like, man, you're amazing. This is a really great idea. Let's go out to dinner to discuss. And this investor told me from a really good place, you're not gonna raise any capital. People just don't invest in Black women. And that investor meant that from a really good place. And that was challenging to hear. And what I learned pretty quickly was that the struggle that I would have to overcome would be what would come up inside of me when I was confronted with the statistics that say you are negligent. It's statistically impossible for you to raise $1 million. And $1 million sounds like a lot of money, but it's not. It's a drop in a bucket. It's a drop in the ocean, right? And so I did the work internally. You know, it's so important as founders of color to be clear about who you are and your ideas and what you have to offer. Because if you go into a room and you carry into that room, only 0.34% of Black women ever get funding, that's the reality that you're going to create for yourself. But if you have clarity about who you are, what you bring, and what your ideas can contribute to the world, that changes everything. So my personal struggle was overcoming the internal limitations, the internal conversations that would hold me back from meeting, greeting, accepting everything that I deserve. And once I was able to tinker with that, everything changed. So as a founder, prioritize your self-care. Make sure that you have clarity. You know, you have a steady practice. For me, of course, that's meditation. I meditate every day, twice a day. And in terms of all of the successes that Clymb has experienced, that, you know, I've recently experienced, all of that success is because I have an amazing team. I cannot take credit for any of that. My team is my greatest asset, and that includes the investors. That includes TEDCO, who was one of our first yeses. So I can honestly say that I probably received about 700 no's, sincerely, 700 no's. But every no was exciting for me because I knew it only took one yes. So this no, man, I'm getting to my yes. My yes is on the way. So having that level of clarity just makes the journey a lot more fun. It makes it exciting, and everything just flows pretty effortlessly, whatever is happening in the world. My mom used to tell me, the only thing you can control is yourself. I cannot control the statistics. I cannot control how people view me. I cannot control the history of this country. However, I can master me, and it's through that self-mastery that everything else sort of falls into place. So I always say my struggle was made possible, if you even want to call it a struggle, because of all of my ancestors who came before me. I don't take this lightly, you know, like in my office, I have a daguerreotype of my like great-great-grandmother. My grandparents actually came here to Baltimore from Littleton, North Carolina. They were sharecroppers. This was a place of possibility for them. So when I'm in Baltimore, Baltimore means possibility for me. This is where my grandparents came to escape the field. So I'm just proud to be here, and I'm happy to share the story about, you know, just remembering what's inside of you. If you connect with that, you have everything. You have everything.
Oh, thank you, Ashley, for that, because I love when we're able to really, like, we understand that, you know, we've all had some type of struggle, and I always say that my 13-year-old has no struggle. Like, she's never going to know what it's like. I mean, it's a great thing. Like, when she does the privilege walk, she's going to be all the way in the front, okay? But to know that we don't always have to lead with that story, but leading with what was that success look like for us, because it does give inspiration. But I do want us not to have to get 700 no's, okay? And so we want to change that.
Absolutely agree that we should not have to get 700 no's. Absolutely.
I'd take 100, but not 700. So, Crystal, this is a dynamic panel of like Black women magic, Black success here. You are the only Black woman full-time in a national network newsroom for an entire decade. You tripled network bookings within the first 2 years. You increased diversity by 85% in your division for that reason alone. You managed 1,300 plus local stations and booked over 140,000 experts during your time in news. That's amazing. And anybody ever had any type of, relationships with news stations, it's not hard. Easy getting in front of anybody. So as a Black woman in the media industry, which is also white male dominated, you decided to create a technology that will address the big gap in the market and allow talent to gain more exposure intentionally, which in my humble opinion is something that never really existed. So what has the journey been like revolutionizing an industry as a Black woman?
Well, I think that where I was the best place to be. A lot of times we go on our journeys and we see what's not right, kind of like what you said, Ashley. I'm the only Black woman in the newsroom, and it's going to be hard for me because I'm the only one, right? Lunch is lonely, right? You don't really get invited to happy hour because typically you invite your community. And I am a Baltimore girl, so at the end of the day, I'm still a Baltimore girl at heart. And I think that was the best proving ground for what Crystal could do. I was doing a lot of, I took a pay cut, about a $25,000 pay cut when I went to network news because I wanted to be in the industry. I was doing remedial work that, was just way below what I had experienced in my journey. And for years, I had this thing in my brain like, this is just preparation for something bigger. I went to network news to be on air, and I'm thankful that I was able to accomplish that at a national level. I had one internship. Well, wait a minute. I got to shout out Omar Muhammad, okay? This man gave me one of my first on-air opportunities with Briefcase Radio, okay? My dad and I were taking a class over at Morgan, and he said, girl, you doing media. Come on and get on air with me. And so that was my first experience even producing, right? So I have to shout him out. But to say that, we can look at our skin color as a limitation in any environment that we go into, right? But that will keep you in shackles, literally. I knew that because I was the only Black woman in the newsroom, when Kelly Rowland came in there, they was like, oh, just send her to Crystal, she can interview her. And that's what I did. And that's how I built my resume. That's how I got to do the news feature that was on 1,300 stations. And so when it was time for me to leave, right, I had hit the proverbial glass ceiling. I knew that I wasn't going to be, full-time network anchor. I didn't want that life at that point, And also the opportunities were just insurmountably upon me. So I remember saying to myself, news had broke. The story of Ebo was really simple. News had broke 2019, December. Something happened at the White House. The president tweeted something. It was crazy. We went to level one, which means we were doing newscasts over and over and over again. And I just went to the bathroom for 3 minutes. I came back, Crystal, where did you go? Oh my God, we need a guest to go on air. And in that moment, I was like, these people can't even book a guest without me physically being in this seat. And I said, wait a minute, that's money.
Hood economics.
Hood economics, okay? If I'm not here, they can't get the job done. They can't improve numbers. They can't get better ratings. They can't get the advertisers and all of that. And so when I realized that was the first moment, but at that point, no one in network news was working from home. This was pre-pandemic, so we had to physically be in the newsroom to do the work. March of 2020, the pandemic hit, went remote in 24 hours. Crystal, go get your laptop. You're going to work from home. And I was like, wait a minute, that thing can be a thing. And so Took me a long time. I'm a non-technical founder. I'm a journalist at heart. I am not a numbers girl. Kudos to all of my cybersecurity medical people. I was the girl that got like a 1.7 in physics, right? But what I knew was that nobody could do my job better than me. If I'm not the blueprint for the founder to create an automation to the process of subject matter expert bookings, then nobody can build it. Nobody could build it but me. And so I share that to say, to go with the conviction of every woman on this panel, you have to know who you are going into these spaces. Investors will look you in your face and say, oh, well, I don't know if that's viable business. And all you have to know is that my job was a business. They were paying me 6 figures to do my job. And there was multiple me's in the room. So what were we delivering to the network? And that's not even including insurance and late night travel. So to automate that process for news outlets and media organizations has been a gift. I know we're close on time, so I'll just go to this though. For me, my funding journey has been accumulation of going into my savings, right? Because I did work in network news and was funding so much of my business myself. I had a couple of strategic grants from both TEDCO and also the Maryland Launch Fund that helped me get through. I was literally in security compliance with one of the biggest media organizations that covers 40% of the US market share. And I had to figure out, how am I gonna pay for this? I have a team of 8 that I'm funding myself, and it was the goodness of the Maryland Launch Fund. Mike Ravenscroft has been an ally and a supporter of mine. Also Tammy here, Jean-Luc, who met me very early when I knew nothing about being a tech founder, but I'll sum up with saying this: know your process. Understand that investment, people are looking to make money. It's about scalability. It's not about charity. So if you don't understand an investor's thesis and you go to them too early, I came from network news, and so I had a high net worth network, but they like, girl, I can't fund you. You're not ready for us. And I could have internalized that rejection and went into this little hole, but like Ashley said, it's about really saying, what do I need to do differently? And so one thing a founder said to me one day, he said, make yourself undeniably fundable. And the way that you do that as a Black founder is have traction. Get your numbers up, get the contract signed, go into those deals where you can write your own terms along with the actual investor, and you're no longer seen as this thing that somebody's helping out. You're somebody who's investable.
Thank you. I do want to shout Omar out too, because he did give me my first opportunity on air and his ratings went all the way up. You're welcome. You're welcome. Sorry, I had to say it. She like set that up for me. But I do want to just, before I ask an open question to everyone, and I don't know if you guys heard this when Tammy introduced me, but I am a founder. I own the largest Black women-owned co-working space in the United States. And to go what you just said, Crystal, around, using your resources, someone asked me this on a panel a few weeks ago at Upsurge on, why didn't I take the VC route, right? And I was very honest with them. I was just like, I didn't feel like it, right? I didn't feel like dealing with everything that came with it. And so it was really important. And it was important for me to get that traction to prove that this is actually something that people are going to pay for, and that I can actually get customers and scale and grow. Now, 7 years later, I didn't know that we were going to really be the largest, Black women-owned co-working space in the United States, but that just goes to show you that, hard work and believing in what your vision is extremely important, and taking those no's as just not right now. I got this, don't worry. And we all know that we used something this morning that was created by a Black woman, I guarantee you. And so we create things out of necessity that becomes a necessity for everybody. So I want to ask this question to all of the panelists. So if you could be in a room full of VCs, so everybody's VCs in here right now, which typically are white men, and have a candid conversation, what message would you want to convey to them? Dr. Clayborne said, I'm ready.
talking to a number of VCs right now. So what's interesting is that I need the VC space to understand that inherently, just because of the statistics, they must acknowledge that the lack of funding going to Black women is because of bias. There is no other reason that would account for that much gap in founding. So my question to them is, where does that bias come from? Because a lot of them, all of us up here were talking about how we're looked at as such high-risk investments, but statistically, we're lower risk. We perform better on capital execution than any other counterpart because we're used to conserving our dollar. We're used to making $1 out of 15 cents. We're used to solving problems. And so where does that bias come from that we're a risky investment when in actuality, if you look at the actual numbers, we perform better than white male founders. And so I want them to have, I mean, there really needs to be a coming to Jesus moment about why is it that I feel inherently that this is riskier when I have data that's showing me that it's actually less risk and that I probably do need to diversify my dollars. And women like you who not only have a good idea and a good market and a good plan and a good team, but have the confidence to take this all the way, right? Have the confidence to create a unicorn exit, who are primed to not only make, their investment worthwhile, but make them look good in the process, because that's what I do.
Love that.
All right. I personally would like to tell the investors in the room to stop overlooking the untapped markets that are ripe for innovation. Blue ocean opportunities. I'm just gonna speak on Spundle. Spundle is a device that just saves time for stylists, salon owners, and hair distributors, but it also creates a whole new revenue stream with this, because the innovation, it's nothing out there like it. No one is thinking about drying wigs and weaves. They're not even appreciating how many wigs and weaves is probably on heads in here. I'm just saying. And that is the reason for us innovating. It is because we realized that, in terms of wigs and weaves, for me, it was getting very sophisticated. They were coming out with they were being innovative and really creating all types of ways to make wigs more seamless. And so I just want to say, don't sleep on the opportunity to disrupt. I want to say this, and then I'm passing on, but I want to give a use case of hacking. If you're from Baltimore, you know what hacking is. That's going out, doing this, and hacking for a ride. But if you are a VC investor, you might know of hacking as Uber, okay? And hacking, we were criminalized for it, okay? And my grandfather was a part of a hack club, okay? And so because he didn't have access to investors that understood what hacking was and how this particular process could manifest into a multi-billion-dollar business, we got overlooked. We weren't able to be the ones to bring that to fruition. So I'm gonna say this, I'm fundraising now, and I am looking to revolutionize in an untapped, overlooked, underserved market. And if you're interested in revolutionizing, definitely find me at the end of this room.
That's it. She dropped the mic. She drops the mic. I would say this to the VCs that are in the room and those who will watch this on the replay. Really reevaluate your thesis. We understand that Black and brown founders, before you can get to your seed round, you need angel investment and you need pre-seed investment. So how can I get to the seed if I don't have the pre or the angel? So systemically, it is designed to eliminate a certain demographic of people. So when you look at your thesis and how you're structuring your funds, and your friends have funds, and your communities have funds, right? Say, well, have you thought about the hurdles that it takes for a Black or brown founder to get to the seed round so they can produce the results, so they can scale their businesses? Because if you can't get through the process according to the thesis, right, or the structure, then you can never scale your business, right? And this is not charity. This is a Crystal Berger who is the blueprint for the business that she built, who understands the industry, who has the relationships, who has the know-how, who has all of the fundamental things that you need except for the initial access to the capital. And so looking at saying, okay, we're gonna actually invest at this stage because we know that Black women will turn water into wine like Jesus did. So let's get her to the point where she can be at the table breaking bread. If she can't be at the table breaking bread because she hasn't had an opportunity to pay for the wine or the glass or the invitations that need to go out on the Evite, she doesn't have a seat at the table. And so I believe that because you're only a product of your experience and your environment, and you may have a clouded lens, the reality of it is that Black and brown founders need money early so that they can prove the traction, because the average white male comes to the table with $2 million. Right there, we're already ruled out of the equation because I can't get I have nine uncles total, and I can't get a $1,000 check. Okay, so that's just the reality, I just want to make a little light, but I think it's just really reevaluating the thesis and ensuring that you can get people to the table so they can break the bread, because that's what's really needed at this point.
So, yes. We are, Tammy is a stickler about time, and I don't want her to, I'm not getting in trouble with Tammy, okay? But I want to give our panelists another round of applause, because this was amazing. Yes. It takes a lot of courage to get up here as a Black woman and to share your stories, raising money. And I just hope that you guys really understand the severity of what we're dealing with, and you figure out how you individually can really make change and to lead from an impact standpoint in your respective roles. So thank you again. Thank you for allowing me to moderate this panel, and I appreciate you all. Thank you.